everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm very excited about this next conversation because I'm sure we've all been in this place before where we're having a customer service experience and it's frustrating. There's a robot on the other end of the phone and we're not getting anywhere. But Pedro's company here has really created a solution to having a better experience with automated tools and AI. So Pedro, why don't you start by just telling us what is Talkdesk? Help the audience know what the company is.
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting us here. It's a great pleasure being here. So Talkdesk is a customer experience automation platform in the cloud. So different from traditional contact centers, we are able to really automate those conversations that happen across all the different types of communication channels and bringing them not just to communicate and connect them to real agents, but in every time we believe that it could create a better experience to do that automation. We try to automation not only with in self-service, but also there's a lot of things that you can do in terms of bringing great experiences when you help the agent to make good choices and good responses. And also, there's a lot of work on the background where automation also makes sense. So sometimes a misconception is that automation is only the so-called bots that most people hate, and, but they are getting better. But the reality is that there's a full span of capabilities across all the journeys that happens in those professionals picking up those calls when we need it.
Right. So the term is Agentic AI. What is the difference between Agentic AI and just an automated robot talking to you? What's the actual difference there?
Yeah, so if I had $1 for every time that I get this question, I could retire myself today. So the reality is, when you think about automations, basically most automations that are non-AI automations, they are scripted, meaning that someone needs to dump their brain to plug into a tool that is going to follow a certain path. Well, the problem about this type of automations is that when you request something that is slightly on the edge of those happy paths, unless you put an incredible amount of time to create those scripts for those edge cases, most automations fail in those moments. And that's when you have the trouble and the issues about automations and the frustration. Agentic automations, on the other way, they differentiate from the others because they are able to actually think. Well, consider think with an asterisk because there are a lot of discussions about if machines can really think, but
right.
Think about the capability to actually require non-scripted conversations and actually giving a set of instructions and a set of tools and a set of knowledge, they actually can figure out the best way to resolve that with the tools that they have available.
So it's the script that makes it different from just an automated tool talking to you. And how do you measure success? Is it less, or faster wait times? Is it the customer experience? How are you measuring the success of this tool?
So you have a lot of KPIs that you can use to measure that, right? Not only operational KPIs, like what was the expected or the waiting time that the customer had to wait. But you also need to measure, those are important KPIs, by the way, right? Mm-hmm. And not only deflection rate, but you also need to measure what is the impact of that. Because you can try to automate a lot. People will be forced to talk to your machine, but what did it create? What happened to your brand experience? Was it good experience? And so you need a set of analytic tools to measure what happened to your NPS, what is happening to your customer emotion, how are they feeling about your brand when you place them in front of a set of automation tools. So that is super important. It's not just about efficiency, it's also about experience.
Yeah, I want to get into the human empathy part of this. This agentic AI is supposed to treat you like another human would at the other end of the phone when, one of your customers include banks if you're calling because your credit card was stolen. I mean, these can include very stressful situations. Can you describe what an agentic AI would say or do when a customer is feeling frustrated? And can they adapt across customer personalities, emotional states, or is it a one-size-fits-all?
Well, no, unfortunately not. And sometimes people think that AI is just a piece of magic. The reality is far from that. Although when it comes to deal with emotions, especially if you have agentic systems that are facing customers, they are pretty good at understanding things like irony, for example, and going into those deep details about understanding those emotions, right? So, for example, if you are struggling because you lose a connection flight, you are struggling to get your new booking for a new flight, they realize, by just the context of the conversation, that this is a stressful situation, right? And so the way they then position all the vocabulary that they choose, according to certain guardrails and protections or guidance in terms of your brand that you want to give as a brand, they are able really good to understand and are able to autonomously give you sentences like, okay, Maria, let's sort this out together, right? And so that is an important part of being able to promote, to have that emotional linkage of that. That requires an alignment with the brand. It's important. Not all the brands communicate in terms of emotions and empathy the same way, so you need to instruct the system to behave in a specific way.
Fascinating. So different brands will tell you how they want their AI agents to respond. I would love to talk about how this might impact the workforce. So AI is shifting the role of product and customer experience teams. Can you walk us through how that's happening? And are we moving from optimizing touch points to designing entire conversations and decision flows?
Yes. So the answer is yes. So we are doing a shift, and we are seeing this on our customers. And actually, you're seeing a lot of new roles being appearing as you are able to start looking at the whole journey that can be automated in multiple ways. Before we have the teams about the website, you have the teams of the apps, now you have the teams of the contact centers. But the reality is this is all blending now. So when what AI allows you to do is basically start blending those touch points, and there's no reason why you cannot provide a support or a clarification about the product that you want to buy and that you are seeing on the website, and having this guidance and this communication synchronously while you are on the phone or on a chat at the same time that you are browsing in the browser or in the app. So this is about journey, AI journey first, instead of siloed experiences.
I imagine this would have an impact with people's jobs potentially getting cut. How does Talkdesk think about what impact this might have on the workforce, where there is still a role for a human being to be there? Are you doing any upskilling or training to make sure that they can meet this new technology?
So that's an interesting point. So take a look. Today, you already need people that design great playbooks. So the success of a CX team is to design, is measured on how they implement or they execute a well-designed playbook. It's the same thing with AI. You also need to create a great playbook. The AI is not a piece of magic. It's not going to figure out the things alone, but it's way more easier than it was before with a pre-scripted era of automation. Now as long as you are able to take a great playbook, the same way that you instruct your CX team or your agents team how they should behave to solve certain type of problems, you instruct the machines exactly in the same way, pretty much with the same type of words. So it's a slightly change, right? You are not exactly teaching or pitching to people, but instead to machines, but pretty much on the same way. This role maintains, it's just evolved into the AI era.
Yeah. In terms of safety and responsibility and all of this, at what point do you escalate in the middle of a conversation with one of these AI agents? Is there a protocol or ownership and escalation process?
There is always. So bear in mind that when you are automating, you need to carefully choose what type of things you want to automate. There is no reason, in terms of experience, if you just think about experience and you take the the benefit of the financial benefit of it, you need to balance what are the use cases that's really worth to automate, and the ones that you still want to have a human touch, even though that human is still assisted by AI. And that's okay, and that's the way you should think about that. Not all the cases are meant to be automated in the same way, and automation, again, doesn't need to be just in full service with bots. There are great things and great KPIs and acceleration. For example, a human agent, this is assisted with AI. It usually, in average, reduces around 25% the average handle time at the same time that it increases the NPS. So that's a great KPI of non-self-service kind of AI automations.
Yeah. And you're working across a lot of different industry, banks, retail, airlines, healthcare providers. What is the biggest challenge on working across all these different brands?
Yeah, so there are challenges, right? So there are challenges. So the biggest challenge that you need to look at is about brand consistency. So those machines, they learn from trillions of documents on the internet. So they learn about the language. They are really great at learning and dealing with the language, but that language may not represent your brand, may not exactly speak the way you want your brand speaks. So it's important that you create a way of training those systems to really talk with your language. So there are several techniques about observation, observability, fine-tuning. Those are where the CX teams need to invest, not on the technology. Don't invest on technology. Invest on how you're going to use the technology so it can represent your brand in the right way.
Represent your brand, but also with diverse customer bases. I mean, can you talk about how this is important in terms of making sure the technology is aligned with different cultures and backgrounds in your customer service base?
Yeah. So again, not all customers are also the same. Right. So when you think about your brand, I'm meaning that is a way the brand talks with your specific types of customers. If you are a brand talking with, you have a retail market, but you're also working on B2B, that's really important that when you think about those playbooks that you are going to use to train those AI agents, you also need to consider that they will need to speak or act in a different way, independently if you are talking with a retail or a B2B kind of use case.
The technology is obviously getting a lot smarter, but what does this mean for the consumer on the other side of the call? I mean, do we need to become better prompt engineers, or how's that going to work?
No. God, no. No, so we as technology providers, we need to have to shift some of our mindset of our engineering teams into, being prompt engineers and being able to design good prompts so the machines can obey to the instructions that then the customers are going to have. But not the customers, all right? So the end user is going to, it's continuing, is the desire to speak exactly in the same way with all the complexities and nuances of the human language, right? A messy type of conversation, saying multiple orders in the same time. I want to change this and this and that, and by the way, I also want to order that other thing. That is human language. It's up to the technology providers to deal with it. So we don't expect, and the customers also are not expecting, that there is a change of the behavior. You know what? When we created the old technology back in 2017 about those pre-scripted bots that everyone hates, right? Because they are not able to follow the normal, anything outside the normal path, they are just not able to do it. Mm-hmm. That is the type of that is the type of technology that promised more than we actually could deliver. And specifically because they were not training into that language, and they were not able to follow whatever those instructions. Now, when you talk about prompting engineering, it's about effective ways of making the machines to obey. And so now it's much easier, but it's on our side. People want to keep talking and not talking. We try to force them in the past with those other machines. We try to force them to change the way they communicate basically almost speaking by keywords, it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
People want to keep talking in the normal way, in the normal human language.
So how far along is the technology right now? Can you tell me what you're hearing from customers? Are we at 100% satisfaction, 80%? What's the feedback that you're getting?
Right, so great point. It's taking up fast, so it's moving really fast. The adoption is moving. Let me give you an example, right? So we have customers that were implementing certain levels of automations using pre-agentic solutions, and they paused it. Because when they saw the difference and how dramatically the experience is when you use a smart system instead of a system that is going to be as smart as the effort that you put into it, they decide to migrate. And that is an indication that they prefer to be early adopters of this technology because the gains are so much high that they prefer to start adopting. So it's taking out fast.
You talked about this a little bit before, but what does this mean for traditional channels like apps, sites, or even human support? Do you see that evolving or completely disappearing?
No. So they are going to change. That is for certain, right? So you are starting having this omni-channel view. Omni-channel is a kind of word that is being spoken for quite some time, but the question that we should ask ourselves is it really omni-channel? Or is this kind of a broken experience across those channels? Can you really find places where you have a brand that presents a solution where you are browsing, you can receive a support, the support is contextual, you can receive a call, you can chat, all this is contextual, and then 3 days later, that brand knows that you are still talking about that and knew that 3 days before you were browsing certain products. So this is a change. This is about designing a journey and not just so much as thinking about point solutions. That's the fundamental change that we are seeing in terms of what AI allows this blend, because it's about creating agents that are able to memorize and remember and use that as an important characteristic of agents, which is context. They are really good at context. So load in an agent all the past browsing experience, load it, or let it access to the products that you are interested on, and I guarantee that it can create a great engaging platform and experience, because it's loaded on the platform all the information that really matters for you in terms of your context, so you have a very much human-like kind of experience, because all of that context and memory that drives that great experience that you are looking for.
Great. Fascinating. Well, that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Pedro, for your time.
Thank you so much.